Hi everyone, this is Mehul Mehta and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So for today's podcast, we have a very special guest. Her name is Hitiksha. So just a quick story about Hitiksha is currently working as a quant researcher, vice president at a asset management firm. She has over 7 years of working experience, 4 years in the United States and 3 years back in India. So in today's podcast, we'll understand from her what is a good roadmap to become a quant researcher. I know a lot of juniors want to become quant researcher, and so in today's podcast, we'll ask Hitiksha, how to be a quant researcher, what are certain good materials to refer, how the job interview would look like for a quant researcher, and many more things. So first of all, I just want to welcome Hitiksha. Welcome Hitiksha for joining this podcast.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. So Hitiksha, can you share us your story? What's your education background and about your work experience? If you can give, something about what you studied back in India, if you came to the US, what you studied, and how did you navigate this whole quant finance journey?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I actually started with an engineer. It was a dual degree program, BTech in IT and MBA finance. So I had a little bit of finance background before I started working, and then it was a 5 year program, and back in Mumbai, and then I started with a consulting job. So I was working at Ernst and Young, and that was in the risk advisory division. And so it was more about financial risk advisory, managing financial risk for banks. So all our clients were in the banking sector. And that's when I first encountered this financial risk manager certification, which was directly related to what I was working on. So that's when I pursued FRM. And as I got to know more about risk management, I also learned about portfolio management, risk in portfolio management. That was my first encounter in the investment management domain through my study in FRM, and also a little bit of quant analysis within FRM because in level one, it's pretty quant heavy. So I learned a lot of probability statistics through that initially. And then I got interested in this investment management, portfolio management domain, especially from the risk perspective. So I moved to an investment management company as a risk analyst. And FRM really helped me get that role. So that's when I started working as a risk analyst. You can call it like a quant risk analyst, but we were mostly our clients were wealth managers, and we were preparing risk reports and everything related to financial risk of portfolios. So in that journey, I also used a little bit of data science and machine learning applications, applied those algorithms within my own work related to automation plus some risk analysis. And then I went a little more deep into what goes on behind these algorithms, which is when I realized math, stats, all of this is really important for even for data science. And then I researched a little more, and I realized this field existed called quantitative research or financial engineering. So that's when I looked for courses which could help me gain that kind of knowledge, the fundamentals, especially related to math and stats, and how it is applied in finance. So then I encountered these MFE programs, Masters in Financial Engineering, Financial Mathematics, all of that. And that's when I came to US to pursue my MFE program at UCLA, which was a great experience. And then I rejoined that investment management firm as a product manager first. So that was a totally different role for me as well. So it was a product manager role for a technology, for a tech tool within that firm. And then I gradually moved within my own company into a quant research role. So that's how I landed up here.
Wow. Okay. Wow. What an amazing journey. So you did a 5 year coursework, BTech MBA, then you got into EY, which was your risk advisory. Then you got into QR, which is quant risk analyst. Came to came to USL for pursuing your master's in FE. And then, of course, your current job, you're working as a quant researcher. So I'm just curious, what made you come to the US, or what made you transition into a pure QR, let's say, quant role? Because a lot of people are into market risk and they want to move towards quant finance roles. So what helped you in your journey? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Like I was mentioning, when I actually started looking at these data science applications, I started learning the math and stats behind those algos. And I slowly realized these quant research roles are very heavy users of these fundamental concepts. So you'll find a lot of PhDs in these kinds of roles. I think you must have seen in job descriptions they require these quant education this quant education degree or a PhD. So PhD is obviously a lot more preferred because they have very strong fundamental knowledge behind these models, how these models work, the mathematics and statistics. So when I started learning the fundamentals behind this, I explored and I really liked the kind of work a quant researcher does. So that's how I transitioned from an analyst, a risk analyst, to this.
Okay. Also, like a lot of students want to enter into quant researcher, but there's no clear roadmap, like how to become a quant researcher. So can you help us understand? Because I mean, at least a lot of my audience are from India, and in India there is no such master's degree in which is from a good college. See, I recently got to know that yes, there are few master's degree offered in financial engineering, but when I look at the university, I've not even heard about this university from so many years. So it's some random university of offering MFA degree. So like I'm just curious because I just want to make sure like people when they hear to this podcast, they understand what does the journey of a QR from an academic perspective look like. So can you help us understand like like what materials helped you in your journey, or what are some materials that someone should refer to, or what are certain subjects someone should study to become a quant researcher?
Yeah, I myself had to do a lot of self-learning to get here, and that's why I actually started this platform, Quantify Your Career, where this is what I'm talking about, the roadmap, like a step-by-step roadmap for each of those. So how I think of it is like into four pillars. One is mathematics. Second is probability statistics. I've separated the two because each of them are really broad. Third is the financial concept, the basic finance concepts. And fourth is programming, because any quant does some kind of programming always, or usually. So within mathematics, I think of some broad topics like starting with fundamentals like refreshing algebra and pre-calculus, like the basic stuff which you must have learned in the 10th grade, 12th grade. So like within linear algebra, the vectors, matrices, all of those. And then simultaneously going over basic calculus like single variable and multivariable calculus, and then going into differential equations. So how learning to solve ordinary differential equations, partial differential equations, so ODE, PDEs, like pure mathematics. And then moving to stochastic calculus. So stochastic calculus, as you know, it's a very important topic in almost every asset class, be it fixed income, derivatives, anything. It's so important. So getting the basics of stochastic calculus, and then numerical methods, implementing the solutions to these PDEs, ODEs, and all of those large systems. And also just not to lose sight of where you want to be, or where you want to get there, is to see how each of these concepts are applied in quant finance. Maybe we can talk about like a project or something where each of these can be used. And then after numerical methods, I would think of optimization, because optimization is a large part, at least in the quant research world. So getting to know constraint optimization, Lagrange multipliers, and convex optimization, and preferably the math behind that is crucial to know. And then you can have some discrete math and integral transform methods, all of that. So that is a whole lot of mathematics. Within probability statistics, you can have probability theory, which includes like Bayes theorem and law of large numbers, all of that, and then random variables and distributions. And knowing all the distributions and like what are the nuances of each of those, when to use which is important, and that's why applications of all of these is really important.
Yeah.
So that'll help. And then moments, like the mean variance, skewness, fourth moment, kurtosis, all of that. And then regression and time series analysis within this probability and statistics bucket, which is which is a subject in itself, actually. So that is, I think, covered in econometrics when I was studying the MFE program. And then hypothesis testing, copulas, extreme value theory, all of those bucketed within probability and statistics. And then coming to finance, of course, there are many other asset classes like fixed income, derivatives. I consider these separate different asset classes within finance, to maybe focus on each of those and apply what you've learned in math and probability into each of those. So that's why I like the structured learning approach. And that also helps in interviews, because I think we were chatting before this, right? All interviews are not focused on one product, or they are very different from each other.
Right.
So some interviews, depending on the role, it is focused on derivatives. Some are only focused on fixed income, and some are only equity, some are multi-asset. But overall, if you structure it this way, I think it helps a lot. And then portfolio theory is kind of important in the finance world. And within programming, of course, Python is the most used usually in the quant research role. And I believe C++ is more on the trading dev side, including Java and all. So this is how I structure the quant research
Wow,
roadmap.
yeah, I don't know how you memorize so many topics at one go, but I feel like you were on point because when I came for my master's, basically we had this a pre you can say a boot camp, pre boot camp before joining MFE, and this was like 3,500 $3,500, which is a lot, right? Just for teaching
Yeah.
the math prerequisite. So I asked them, hey, can you send me what topics will you teach, and is the bootcamp is it essential to attend, or is it optional? So they said it's optional, and whatever topics you mentioned, the same topics I studied just before pursuing my masters. So this was on spot. I'm just curious, like, because I'm also writing of whatever you are saying, I'm making notes. So my question is, like, someone who's just a fresher, let's talk about an engineer, right? So engineer has studied the mathematical part. Most of the engineers would have studied the probability and the statistics part, but
Mhm.
what about the finance part? Because this is,
Yeah.
you said you studied MBA, so I'm sure like in MBA they might teach you certain finance stuff. But
Right.
like when I joined the industry, I was from a engineering background. I didn't have any hold of finance, and that's where, like, when I started with my risk and regulatory role at PwC, the first project was a credit risk project, and then I would slowly
Right.
transition into market risk. But again, back then also I had not much knowledge about, okay, what are different, like what is fixed income, what is derivative. So
Mhm.
like from an engineer's perspective, like how would someone learn fixed income, derivative, because these are big worlds. Do you think like pursuing certification like FRM might help, or is there anything else which you want us to, like, how should someone learn the finance part is what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, I think at some point even I had these questions too. Although my MBA did help me get basics of whatever you were mentioning. Like we had a derivatives class and fixed income class, and I think there was a portfolio theory class also, which gave good basic knowledge of even financial markets. So MBA helped in that, but if it's not an MBA, a CFA definitely would help giving that basic knowledge, because I believe in the first two levels you have all of these subjects. So a CFA gives a broad perspective, I believe. I have taken FRM, so I can talk about more about that. That really helped me get good knowledge of fixed income, especially, and also products like swaps. They explained swaps really well in that. So that was the first time I actually learned swaps a lot more. So yeah, these FRM CFA certifications definitely help. In fact, even in my MFE program, I was studying for one subject. I think it was investment management, and I went to a CFA book to study portfolio theory. They had explained it pretty well, even like the CAPM models and basics. So these certifications I feel really help. And I think if you don't want to take the certification, definitely the book reading those books will help.
Yeah,
Especially,
that is one thing I always say that, lot of, because, I was also working in an industry and it's very tough to, prepare and, when you go and in India, work-life balance is too horrible. So you spend like 10, 12 hours in the office and then you need to study for certification, way too tough because of course you're already exhausted. So I always say that at least read books. That's the best thing. Don't give certification. Just
yeah.
read books, you'll get the knowledge.
Absolutely, yeah. The FRN certification, when I was in Mumbai, I remember traveling in the local train, and I used to study FRM only during my commute.
Oh,
I was yeah, I could not study after coming back. I was so tired, but the commute, the journey, I could actually remember more when I studied there. So it was fun times, yeah.
Mhm.
But in terms of books, I really liked specialized books like obviously John C. Hull's book on derivatives and Fabozzi's book on fixed income, handbook of fixed income securities.
Yeah.
That book is really good. So product knowledge, if you want to go deep into that, that is really good.
Also, one question is how much deep should someone go? And this is one question, because people ask, I mean, derivative is so big. I mean, in general, derivative is so big, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
you give 6 months, you'll still study, you'll still, have so many topics which you have should study or, I mean, my question is more like how much deep should someone study so as to clear the interviews, and of course I'll come to the interview part because I know we need to discuss, but just more like from a material perspective, like how deep should someone go in a specific subject, like you mentioned about linear algebra,
Mhm.
calculus and all other subjects, because understanding the math might also take time, and like how much deep should someone go is the question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question because this I've learned only from my own experience, and maybe different. You might have a different experience, but what benefited me was having only the basic fundamental knowledge on what this is, how it is used, and what is why it exists. Just the basic knowledge for interviews, and then if when you actually do some projects, you get to know more about the models in within the project. For example, if you implement a term structure model, you can go deeper when you implement. Sorry, when you actually implement that, and that's when the interviewer will also go deep into it if you've mentioned it on your resume. So at that time, you can, I think, go deeper. But otherwise, the basics, that is what is asked in interviews, like we were talking before, right?
Okay, okay. So we covered, okay, so I would just say that, okay, if you are from a engineering background, right, you have already studied the math, the probability, the stat parts of it, right? I would say for finance, maybe doing FRM level 1 certification. Again, I'm saying if you can clear the certification, that's great. But if you cannot clear the certification, just study for it. Just if you feel like, I'm not able to even study the books, I'm not able to comprehend, take some FRM level 1 coaching from any, there are so many providers for FRM level 1 coaching. You can just either
Yeah.
go for that, or if in case I would always suggest to study books because I myself study a lot of books. So that's where you can cover the finance part. And for the programming, Python you can learn from anywhere, it's already
Mm.
out there. So Python I don't think should be a big problem, but I guess we covered the study material, but then how about the interviews? Like, because each interview is so different, and that's what we were talking about before the podcast. Like, you see a quant researcher role, it is not like on a, like if I just study the derivatives or if I just study the stochastic calculus, I'll clear this interview. Because every interview, some interview will ask you have a specific knowledge towards portfolio management. Some interviews I see they want knowledge towards derivative, stochastic, and fixed income. So like how to navigate this whole QR interview process. And also I've seen like some interviews the whole focus is on probability and statistics. So,
Yeah.
like can you guide us? Yeah.
Yeah, from whatever I have seen before, especially in quant research roles, there is a lot of focus on mathematics and probability and statistics. And that is why they ask so many brain teaser questions
Mm.
to test that knowledge. So if you have that those basic topics which I was mentioning, a whole lot of topics which I was mentioning in math and probability statistics, if you have all that covered already, then everything else gets a little more easier, a little more. So like in brain teaser questions also, I think if you, for specifically for interview practice, if you have this regular practice of brain teaser questions, and that's what I'm actually doing on LinkedIn these days. Like every week, I'm solving one brain teaser, although it should be more than that. But something is better than nothing. Then you actually start finding patterns within two, like many questions. So one concept is actually used in many questions in different ways. So that really opens up your mind, and you will realize this when you keep solving, practicing these brain teaser questions very often. And this is particularly for quant research roles, which I've seen.
Okay. And
So, yeah.
sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, that is definitely one part, which is the brain teaser questions, and these math and probability foundations should be strong for a QR role specifically, because of many of these models and algorithms which you're using, even optimization frameworks are based on this. And if you mention something on your resume related to this, your interviewer is bound to ask you questions deeper into that model. So which goes again to your foundation of how it's working.
Right, right.
So yeah.
So what I understand is from an interview perspective, brain teasers are important. Then solving different puzzles or maybe that is important. Then the mathematics and probability foundations are important. Is that so? Do they test you on finance knowledge in general? Like because I have never interviewed for a QR role in general. So even I'm not very sure of how it happens. So I'm just curious, like do they ask you derivatives, fixed income, or like mostly on the the finance part? Do they ask you those questions?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So honestly, from whatever I have seen is, if your these math, probability, and even programming is very strong, sometimes they also say that this finance part can be learned on the job, because, like I said, every role is very specific to that product. So you will go deeper into that product. Like you said, there is so much to learn within derivatives. You will not, it's never ending. So if you specialize in that role, you will learn even more. But the basics, you should have the basic knowledge of how, for example, the bond math works, the duration, convexity, all of that, how the math behind it works, what is negative convexity, for example, all of that. So even the basics are fine. And I think in some roles even market knowledge matters, since fixed income is such a big part
Right.
of markets.
But like if I ask you, like 80% of the interview, is it more focused on like the brain teasers and solving like the probability questions? Because I just wanted to understand, or is it more focused towards the finance part or the programming part?
No, no, brain teasers is not 80%. It is maybe 10 to 20%, but that 10 to 20% is always, almost always there.
Okay.
In fact, even for my financial engineering, the program itself, I had these brain teaser questions from a lot of colleges.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So I remember, yeah, the Bayes theorem and all of that. There are interviews for example, at UC Berkeley, and all of these programs do have, even at UCLA.
yeah.
So. So brain teasers are definitely a part of this QR role, but it's more about 10 to 20%. And then so I think major chunk is more on your resume, right?
Right.
Whatever you have mentioned, then they will start with a broader project overview, talk through that project, what challenges you had in those in that project, what led you to this using this model, why didn't you use this model, and then going very deep into why, for example, PCA analysis, and then going into vectors, the basics, vectors, matrices,
Right.
what are eigenvectors. So it trickles down from the broad perspective to these fundamentals.
Okay, okay, understood. So, okay, so we spoke about, okay, the material we spoke about from an interview perspective. The next hurdle is getting an interview call, because people do not get in, students do not get interview call, and when so I do help a lot of juniors, and when I see their resume, I feel like, you have not done even a single quant project. How
Hmm.
would you get an interview call? I mean, you should have something related to quant finance, right? Something
Yeah.
to show that you have certain knowledge of quant finance. So, like, what would you say? Any project recommendations, or maybe like any project which you think or which was beneficial for you, or anything from that perspective?
Yeah, for sure, projects need to be there. If there's no work experience, that will help a lot, and especially if you have a GitHub profile, that also helps, because then they can see that you have implemented. They can maybe see the code. Sometimes actually, recruiters also might see the actual code, how you've implemented it, all of that. So projects and GitHub profiles, but maybe we can take one example. This is like an academic project,
Like,
but
yeah.
maybe forecasting bond returns using yield curve modeling and volatility forecasting. So, for example, this might be a combination of multiple. You can divide that project into multiple parts.
Hmm.
Like first, you can use a dynamic term structure model like Nelson Siegel, to break down the yield curve into those three components: level, slope, and curvature. And then you can understand. So this makes you understand how the curve is shifting, like flattening, steepening, inverting. So this will firstly give you and help you showcase that you know this kind of a model and you have implemented it. Then they might go deep into what is it, a parametric model, what are these parameters, all of that. Then the second step, maybe you can forecast the components from that model using vector autoregression or a Riemann model. So this will show that you know time series models. So then they can get deeper into the concepts of time series and regression analysis. So that will showcase that you know this and how you used it. And then you can estimate how bond prices will react to yield changes using duration based math. So using these forecasts, so this will show that you know this bond math or fixed income as an asset class in general, how it works, what are the nuances. And then separately, you can fit maybe a Garch model for volatility. So then this is like a holistic project which will show your forecasting of bond returns as well as risk. And then you can extend it or shorten this anyhow, but this is like an example of a holistic project where you can show so many different concepts, and you will know what they might ask, like you will know what to expect. That kind of a project might help.
Right, right, right. No, definitely. I guess those are really great suggestions, because I feel like a lot of times freshers in general, they do not have any quant related projects, and that's where the issue starts from, not getting interview calls. So definitely adding what you said, projects on fixed income or time series or derivatives or stochastic modeling, maybe it definitely helps. So what I'm more curious is about, let's say someone, you know now, because getting a QR role is extremely challenging, right? And sometimes you keep applying, but you do not hear back from the employer. So like what would you recommend? Like so I understand, let's say if I have done the practice, let's say I've studied the material, whatever you have said, the math, the probability, the statistics, finance and programming, let's say.
Mhm.
Now what would be my next step? Because you mentioned that okay, you should practice problem solving and brain teasers. Is there any platform in journal which you would recommend which helped you, or anything like that?
Mostly for brain teaser questions, mostly those books are helping, or there are blogs which you can keep practicing on. But mostly, so networking is a major it plays a major role in our industry, I feel. Maybe not much in tech, but at least in our industry, it plays a major role. So maybe finding a mentor or a peer group will help, or just reaching out to professors, or if you're studying, then reaching out to professors or people on LinkedIn. So you can learn a lot from them, and also they might be able to help you
Okay,
connect with other people.
right.
And if you're already working at some company, you can reach out to other teams, for example. Other than that, I think these competitions, I have not participated, but I have seen many people participate in these Kaggle competitions and the Quant finance ones, which are popular in US.
Mm.
That helps a lot, making connections and also implementing what you've learned, and then making a community out of it. So
Right.
I think that helps.
Also, I'm just curious on the data science and the machine learning part. Those are also very important because I know for a fact that now in India, data science and machine learning, a lot of students they are aware about all these concepts. So, how important role do they play in your actual job interview or in your, let's say, workplace? How important are they, or is it more important to learn, the let's say the finance part of it, or let's say maybe I should of course I'll not say the math and stat because that's what data science cover, but like what's your
Mhm.
take on that? Like how important are those?
Uh, it is a difficult question to answer because it totally depends on the kind of role. I think some QR roles don't use it at all, and some actually use it a lot. I have seen both sides. So if I would just say it is going to give you an edge over not someone not using it or not having used it before, because I feel eventually this will be of use later. This
Later.
is just my personal opinion. So this will definitely be adopted by many companies. So it will give you an edge if you
Okay.
learn.
Right. So any last advice?
But
Yeah, sorry.
sorry, yeah, but just being cautious is if you mention it somewhere in the interview or in the resume, you should know the math behind it. It's not just the application, because that is something which will help. This will definitely be asked.
Okay.
The math behind it. Yeah.
Mhm. Also, so Hitiksha, this was wonderful actually, understanding so many components starting from, okay, what are different subjects to study, and then, how to prepare for interviews. Of course, you mentioned about solving puzzles and a lot of other stuff. So I'm just curious, like any last advice which you would want to give the viewers, because a lot of people want to come into the quant finance space, but as you said, I mean, at least for our industry, there are not many materials out there on different platforms, if you see. So like, and when we started, there was, I mean, almost like few years, 5 6 years back, there was not even a single thing out there for quant finance. So what would you recommend your, let's say, our, let's say, our viewers, maybe, what's the best way to enter into quant finance, or any last advice which you have for the viewers?
I think what helped me the most was just being curious. No degree or certification. It was just being curious to know about a particular concept or model, or that helped me replicate some research papers also. I mean, you'll get more ideas if you're curious enough and persistent enough to keep searching for ideas. And when you actually read these research papers, which is actually a very important part in a quant research role or field, right? When you keep reading these other papers, you will get more ideas, and then you can connect the dots between what you've learned and what you have read. So connecting those dots will become easier, and then practical implementation of whatever you've studied is going to help. That helped me also.
Okay, okay, sounds good, sounds good. Any other advice or anything else from your end, or should we wrap it up?
Uh, no, I mean, it was really nice talking to you, and that's what I hope many people do come into this field and know more about this field.
Also,
Um,
yeah, just for the viewers, Hitiksha, please, she has a YouTube channel, and that's how I discovered her. So make sure, please follow her on her YouTube channel because I saw the shorts on her YouTube and they were like amazing because I feel like very few quant stuff is there outside on YouTube, and she's working really hard to put a lot of content for the audience. So if in case so Diksha, what's your channel name if you would like to say
yeah,
that?
sure. It is called Quantify Your Career, and quant is in quotes. So
Okay.
it's more about quant finance and career development.
Okay. Okay.
But
And also
thanks for that.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. So make sure you all subscribe to her channel because she's genuinely sharing a lot of cool stuff. And a lot of times, I'm just saying from a personal perspective, like a lot of times, you might think that, oh, she has just written for the sake of writing, but even if you see a 1 minute short, like she has actually put a lot of effort telling you stuff. Now from a viewer's perspective, you might see, okay, I've just seen the reel, but you should actually go write what is important. Even if you're seeing this podcast, I highly recommend that please make notes. I'm not sure, like, but I was taking notes throughout the podcast, like this. I'm not sure if all of you can see this, but I've just filled this completely, the back and the front. Very important when you when you hear any podcast, and specifically a quant one, when you don't see any resources out there, people like Hitiksha, they share their journey. So I genuinely very thankful to Hitiksha, and thank you for joining in today.
Thanks, Mehul, and you're doing a great job on YouTube too. I've followed you, and I'm actually enjoying these podcasts. I'm also a viewer of your YouTube channel.
Okay.
So yeah, I think together we can form a great quant community.
Sure, sure, sure. Thanks, Hitiksha, for your compliments. So thank you all for viewing till the end, and thank you, Hitiksha, for joining in.
Thanks, Mehul.